The book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, has indeed changed the wealth outlook of tens of millions of people worldwide since its publication in 1997, and it has had a substantive impact on me as well. However, it is a very common phenomenon that many people have read it but did not become rich. Many people will not change or be influenced simply because of a book. To read a book and be truly influenced by it requires a kind of perception and wisdom. Perception and wisdom are not things that everyone possesses. Therefore, it is destined that not everyone will be influenced and changed. This book is essentially a conceptual enlightenment book, rather than an operating manual. The author, Robert Kiyosaki, primarily provides people with a philosophy and a direction for thinking. The book teaches you, don't work for money, let money work for you, but the vast majority of people do not truly understand the meaning of this sentence. Don't work for money and let money work for you are actually two different concepts. The phrase don't work for money is actually flawed because the general public must first work for money. The issue we need to discuss is first work for money, and then how can we make money work for us? As members of the general public, we must first solve the problem of survival by working for money. Only on the basis of solving the survival problem can we discuss investing, managing money, and making money work for us. Here, I find it necessary to remind everyone that the author, Robert Kiyosaki, is a Japanese American, and the logical foundation of this book is built under the capitalist system. Therefore, when we read this book, we need to look at and understand it dialectically in combination with our own national conditions. According to the core theory in Rich Dad, Poor Dad and its series, achieving financial freedom is mainly through four core channels. The sole logic of the book is, don't work for money, let money work for you. To achieve this, you must establish assets that can generate continuous cash flow. 1. Real estate. 2. Paper assets, including stocks, bonds, mutual funds, etc. 3. Business, commerce. Owning a business that can operate without your personal presence. 4. Commodities, such as gold, silver, oil, etc. So, to understand the channels proposed by Robert Kiyosaki, we truly need to make judgments and analyses based on our specific national conditions and actual situation. In fact, the things he proposed have reference significance and borrowing value. His core idea is to let us know that as the working class, it is destined to be impossible to achieve financial freedom or a wealthy life. That is to say, his core idea requires us to realize that as ordinary people, the most feasible path should be to think about the arrangement of non-wage income on the basis of working. This is the important path suitable for the general public. In fact, this is also the road chosen by the broad American public. That is to say, we Chinese often ridicule Americans by saying they have no savings and do not save money. Speaking of this, it is time for us Chinese to reflect. Why is it said that Americans have no savings? Because the extra part of their money is used to invest in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or real estate. In other words, in addition to wage income, Americans also have passive income. They will have some extra passive income besides their wages. From this point, one can see the difference in investment and financial management between the people of China and the United States, and the difference in wealth concepts. In fact, speaking of these differences, the most core difference is the difference in economic concepts, the difference in investment and financial management, and the difference in values. Speaking of these differences, it actually shows the gap in culture, concepts, and quality between the people of China and the United States. In fact, the existence of this gap is because our country has not experienced the process of a market economy, so our people lack understanding and recognition of some concepts of a market economy. Ultimately, it is a lag in culture, because our country transitioned from a poor and backward society and did not experience the Industrial Revolution or capitalism. Therefore, our cultural concepts are extremely poor and deficient in economic knowledge. The heads of Chinese people naturally lack an understanding of wealth. In ancient times, people who possessed knowledge were often also those who possessed wealth. This phenomenon was particularly evident in the developed areas of ancient China. Knowledge achieved wealth, and wealth achieved knowledge. This phenomenon was very clearly displayed in the ancient Jiangsu and Zhejiang regions. Due to the unique geographical conditions, the Jiangsu and Zhejiang regions naturally became affluent areas. Because of this affluence, it in turn achieved the deep cultural heritage of the region. For example, in Suzhou, I saw a Zhuangyuan pavilion, scholar pavilion, with a stone tablet engraved with the names of about 100 Zhuangyuan, top scholars. This was very shocking to me. In other regions, it would be a rare thing to produce one Zhuangyuan, yet here there were more than 100. What I am saying is to explain a principle. To become a rich person, one needs to learn and read. Therefore, one needs to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. In fact, what I want to say here even more is that we should not only read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but also read more books from all aspects and various kinds of knowledge. To become a rich person, one must first become a rich person in thought through reading and learning. That is, to have rich knowledge, experience, and cultivation. Becoming a rich person is not an accidental thing. It must have its reason and logic. In my view, the first step for a grassroots person, an ordinary person, or someone starting with nothing to become a rich person, is to truly recognize and understand the steps to becoming rich from a conceptual level and take action. First, start with frugality. Start from saving enough money to buy the first egg. Moreover, becoming a rich person is not a matter of one day or one night's effort. Sometimes this process of moving forward step by step can be very long. Some families may have walked it for 1 generation, 2 generations, or 3 generations. As an ordinary person, the most fundamental first step to achieving financial freedom and a wealthy life is to start with savings, and savings start with frugality. But as soon as frugality is mentioned, it's like asking for many people's lives. Speaking of this is a key issue. Frugality is precisely what the vast majority of people cannot do. Frugality is a science. Some people seem frugal, but in fact, many people are frugal in the wrong places and extravagantly generous in the wrong places. This is exactly what the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad wants to tell everyone, to let everyone distinguish what is called frugality and what is called generosity. In the words of the author, Robert Kiyosaki, it is to distinguish what are assets and what are liabilities. Many Chinese people happen to mix up liabilities and assets in many places. This is a fatal problem. Chinese people think that buying a car is an asset for the family, but this is wrong, because this car is like a gold-swallowing monster every day. Every day it requires you to take money out. In the words of Robert Kiyosaki, things that can bring positive cash flow to the family are called assets. If something always reaches out for money and takes money out, it is called a debt, liability. The vast majority of Chinese families lose in this place. Therefore, Chinese people have not learned to recognize assets, and have not learned that money that should be spent must be spent, and money that should be saved must be saved. This is a common flaw in the vast majority of families, so it is destined that the vast majority of people are poor. Distinguish between assets and liabilities, and focus on accumulating true assets. Hey, it is necessary for you to clarify here. Assets, things that put money into your pocket, such as rental properties, dividend-paying stocks, corporate equity, intellectual property, etc. Liabilities, things that take money out of your pocket, such as personal home loans, car loans, luxury consumption. Just like on the internet during the Spring Festival, many young people spent a blood-curdling price for face, acting like a fat man by slapping their own face, posing as rich. Many girls can't move their feet when they see brand-name bags, as if you carry a brand-name bag, everyone who sees you will bow and kowtow to you. In fact, what kind of bag you carry is none of my damn business. I will never look at you squarely just because you carry a good-looking or brand-name bag. Only a poor person's mindset will focus on these matters of face, brand-name cars, brand-name bags, brand-name clothes, brand-name shoes. People who focus on these things are basically poor people. This is how worldviews and values determine that these people are destined to be poor and will always be poor, and their descendants will always be poor. This is to say, poverty can be inherited, because what is inherited is the worldview, values, and wealth outlook. The poor thinking and poor values are passed down. Even if some people know they need to be diligent and thrifty, and know that a certain thing is not necessarily worth buying, it is not easy to do, because this concerns the weakness of human nature. Because material temptation and the satisfaction of exploding vanity possess nuclear-level lethality and are irresistible. This is where we should talk about the fact that to become a rich person, one must first cultivate, improve, and sublimate one's own human nature. How much wealth you will have in the future and what level of wealth you reach is related to your level of cultivation. Speaking of this, you already know why the vast majority of people cannot become rich. It's not that opportunities are not given to you, but that your cultivation is not in place. Some say, choices determine fate, and this sentence is also correct, that is to say, choices determine your wealth. The basis of choice is judgment, and the basis of judgment is knowledge and cultivation. Seeing this, you might say what I'm saying is too mysterious. You seem to have seen many people who don't seem to be as I say, yet also made a fortune. Yes, many people will make a fortune by cheating, by opportunistic behavior, and by various strange means. But there is a saying on the internet, money earned by luck will eventually be lost by lack of strength. The strength mentioned here refers to the fact that your cultivation is not enough, your knowledge is not enough, and your cognition is not enough, so your wealth will eventually not stay. Regarding this issue, I have seen many cases. Many people were very wealthy, especially in these years when the economic situation is not good. Former billionaires and millionaires have turned into big negative heirs, dafu wang. The rich here refers to a negative balance. Not only did they lose their original billions in assets, but they also owe huge debts. I really feel so sorry for them. This is the most failed ignorance in life, not knowing when to advance and when to retreat. That is, the result of not studying, not reading books, not reading newspapers, and not improving oneself. So this result is actually destined. Here, I want to tell everyone that the person I admire most is truly Li Ka-shing. He is a model of being able to handle advancing and retreating. Of those real estate projects Li Ka-shing invested in China, tell me which one he got stuck in. He always withdrew at the right time. Years ago, when Li Ka-shing was withdrawing, the media was still mocking him, saying our motherland is flourishing and our housing market continues to rise. Looking back now, Li Ka-shing exists like a god. Here, I also have to mention another Chinese person I admire, and that is Pan Shi. Pan Shi said it very bluntly. He said, I am not as smart as Li Ka-shing, but I can learn from him. So when he saw Li Ka-shing retreating, he also retreated. Therefore, in the Chinese business world, I believe Pan Shi is a successful model of learning to retreat, unlike some of China's richest men, who turned from big rich men into big negative men. Speaking of this, I don't know if you have understood. Where does becoming a rich person begin? In fact, there is no textbook-like path that can be copied, but start from diligence and thrift to save your first sum of capital. Only with the first sum of capital can you have an opportunity. Next, we can talk about what an opportunity is. People can have various opportunities, but the most fundamental is truly the first batch of starting capital. With the first sum of starting capital, what we need to do next is our project. Whether our project will bring us wealth, will definitely win for us, and will definitely make us money, this involves another issue. This issue is still a matter of scholarship, knowledge, cognition, and cultivation. When we encounter an opportunity, what we need to do now is evaluate whether this opportunity can really make money. At this time, we need to consult high-level people to do the evaluation, judgment, and guidance for us. If you have already grown into a person with a mature mind, rich knowledge, and broad vision, then your judgment at this time will likely not be too bad. Plus, with the guidance of high-level people, your project will likely not fail. That is to say, you will likely become a person with money. The ancients had a good saying: read 10,000 books, travel 10,000 miles. This is absolutely the truth. Years ago, a popular saying was, if you don't manage your money won't manage you. This sentence also makes sense, but there is one problem you must know. Where does managing money begin? In fact, managing money begins with learning the cognition of wealth. Only when you have enough understanding of wealth, enough understanding of social operations, and extremely rich comprehensive knowledge, are you qualified to talk about managing money. Of course, ordinary people do not have the qualification for independent wealth management. Then we can buy stocks and funds and leave it to professional personnel and professional institutions to handle. However, here I have to remind everyone, it is better to stay away from the Chinese stock market. Under the current economic situation, what we need to focus on is how to preserve existing wealth. In this era and this economic environment, talking about investment is very inappropriate. Well, having rambled so much here today, in fact, this topic is an eternal and complex topic. Based on just a few words today, it cannot be fully explained. Let's stop here today, and if there is a chance, let's chat in detail again. If you feel this video is inspiring, then give this video a like now. I sincerely hope friends who like this can realize a free lifestyle soon. This channel is about knowledge and experience sharing of making money online and online entrepreneurship. If you are interested, remember to subscribe and then click the small bell next to it. We will see you next time. Good luck to you.